Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another week of the Smite Pro League. My name is Tom Badinger, joined here by the illustrious Taco. And we've got two matches today that should be rather exciting. Trifecta and Spacestation Gaming at first, and then we'll see LG take on SK Gaming.
And I think it's pretty suitable matchups for all of these teams involved today. And it'll be really interesting to see, I think, who's going to bounce back first between Trifecta or Spacestation Gaming, because both of these teams have gotten off to a pretty rough start here in Season 6, and I think they're just looking for that turnaround right now.
A lot of fans at home kind of rooting for these teams as well. Space Station sporting the ever-popular Jeff and BaRRaCCuDDa, and then, of course, on the other side, Weekend, one of the bigger names in the Smite scene, so very interesting to see. And also, you know, one of the interesting things about Trifecta, we've got some returning members. We haven't seen Eonic in a while, so two very interesting rosters. But as we talk about Trifecta more specifically, I think these guys are the team that perhaps need the most work under the hood, and I think that's really how Trifecta need to approach today, is really look internally and see how they can fix up some of the mistakes they made previously.
Well, I think it'll be an awesome experience for Wowy and Eonic to kind of get a little bit more, I guess, reps in dealing with BaRRaCCuDDa and Jeff over there. This is a really experienced dual lane from Spacestation Gaming, so you know that there's probably going to be a lot of emphasis and focus surrounding this dual lane in comparison to some of the competitive play we've been seeing so far, where it's, I think, teeter-totter a little bit more towards a solo lane dominance.
Yeah, Ducky over here has had an interesting time, certainly not the strongest, but of course when we talk about these teams and players, we got to discuss strength of schedule. And I think that Trifecta versus SSG today is a much more evenly set up match than what we've seen in the past.
It's not that these teams are, you know, terrible by any sense of the means. It's just that I think both of them have been having a tough time finding their identity. For Trifecta, that's largely due to the fact that this team is so new with working with each other. These are all individual players that have never really teamed before. So for them to now all be trying to come together and find their synergy, find their play style, that's going to take a little bit of time to develop, I think. But in comparison to that, you've got Space Station, who's a little bit more solidified, sure, but that's mostly just on paper. I don't necessarily feel as though the synergy has really been all that consistent, but up against Trifecta here today, Space Station might be able to stay a little bit more on beat.
Yeah, I think it's more about the complete picture. There's Wowy, the carry for Trifecta, and what I see here is that Trifecta, like you said, a little bit newer. Lasbra shifting positions after a fantastic rookie season in the jungle. Space Station Gaming over there. This is a new meta. This is a new league. There's a lot of stuff to learn, and I think historically, looking at Space Station, a very accomplished team, but they're slow to start at first. So I think this is kind of normal, honestly, for both sides, and I'm excited to kind of watch how these guys are going to go. As we take a look at the whole league, Dignitas has been up on top. E United also undefeated, and Pittsburgh Knights right beneath them. Rivals been exciting along to watch it with SK Gaming, and today, like we said, Space Station 0-2, Trifecta 0-1. Somebody's going to wind up with a W.
And I know that both of these teams are certainly looking for it. Space Station as well, I think, having a pretty rough start considering their opening week with the Pittsburgh Knights straight into the Dignitas matchup, and it just didn't really seem to bode too well for the team. But I think at the same time, it might have also helped because now coming up against Trifecta, they've had a lot of downtime, I think, to kind of go back, analyze those VODs, and not only that, but they also got a chance to see what Trifecta has to offer.
That's the big deal. You know, if you guys have watched Esports Weekly, which you should, it's on every Wednesday, we were talking, we all have our own teams, and I'm a correspondent for Space Station Gaming, and as I was talking to Jeff this week, what he had to say was, look, we understand that we kind of came a little slow out of the gate, but what that has given us the opportunity, one, we fought some of the harder teams out there, and of course they had the luxury of watching everybody else play. Space Station Gaming, in my opinion, has been a squad that has struggled to lead the way as far as meta is concerned. They stick to traditional, they stick to norm, and frankly, I don't think you can do that anymore. So Space Station Gaming kind of taking notes from the opposition and learning therein. Trifecta, as we said, trying to improve. You highlighted the solo lane, so who better to speak to than Ducky? He's standing by before we get things going.
I am here with Ducky, solo laner for Trifecta. And Ducky, I'm glad that I had a chance to talk with you in particular because you're on a team with, you know, a bunch of big names and personalities. What's it been like, you know, staying with these guys, living with these guys, getting to know them a lot better for you? How's everybody gelling?
I mean, it's been going pretty well. I've been doing most of the cooking, other than Sinjin's chili, which he made the other day, which is lovely. But I burnt Lass's bacon this morning, so if he ends up going to the toilet mid-game, it's probably my fault.
All right, so maybe you've thrown him off a little bit mentally just with the way the breakfast already started. When you guys are up against Space Station, they've had a bit of a rough start. How confident is the team feeling that you guys are going to be able to pick this one up?
I mean, we also had a rough start, all things considered, but I think we're looking a lot better. We've had a lot of practice since getting here, so I'm hoping things will go our way. You know, we'll see.
Okay. Now that you've like kind of lived with everybody for a little while, is there anybody you've maybe learned too much about at this point? Maybe you feel like you got a little too close to since y'all have been together, anything like that?
Probably Lass. I'll probably pick Lass, yeah.
Well, what is it that has you feeling that way?
He's just so open about everything. He's so nice. He just comes up behind me, a little massage there, and I don't know, man. He's so great, though. Great guy.
Okay, good. Glad to hear it. Do you feel like that, you guys' synergy and everything is on point? I know you practiced for a little, but things were different when you guys finally got here. Do you guys feel like you're caught up and everything and ready from all your practice now?
Yeah, I think we're very much ready. We've had a lot of practice, like a lot of time to do stuff. Not much free time now, because scrimming, twice a day, it's a lot. But, yeah, I'm feeling ready.
Well, good. Sounds like they put in a ton of work. Good luck to you guys here in your next set. We'll get it back over to the desk.
Thanks a lot, John. Thanks a lot, Ducky over there. Fantastic words, I guess. Not so confident, but certainly feeling good about things. And, it's funny. I think that when we see the pros come out here and they're like, yeah, 3-1, my direction. Sometimes I buy it, sometimes I don't. But I think that the atmosphere in that room is probably exactly what Trifecta need in order to bring a win home.
There's some tension, though, I think, for sure, coming out, at least from the perspective that Ducky was tossing me. But I definitely think that Ducky, I love the way that he mentioned that, not a whole lot of free time right now. We're scrimming like 2 times a day. I think that everybody having a chance to live together as well. So this team is, I think, taking steps in the right direction to try and figure out what's going to be working best for them.
Across the way, Space Station Gaming certainly going to be a tall task. As we said, both of the teams kind of struggling out of the gate, but I think once you match these guys up, it's an interesting situation. The dual lane is what everybody has been focused on as far as the history of Smite, but I have all eyes on that mid and the solo lane. Aquarius has been one of the go-to guys here in the regular season, and a little bit of last year as well. And then Venenu also kind of standing up on his own 2 feet. Well, quite literally, he's not in his seat, but he's been looking really strong in that mid lane and could be the hope for SSG today.
Venenu as, a possible... He has, I think, an opportunity to kind of rise above because I think recently Venenu has definitely been struggling with trying to find that consistency, that MVP Venenu that we saw from a Worlds not too long ago, in fact. And I think ever since Venenu shifted off of United and swapped back over to Space Station Gaming, he's made some great things happen alongside of andinster, but I don't exactly feel as though those two are perfectly in sync.
I feel that. Also, Aquarius struggling with the hair under the headset. I feel that too, brother. Trust me. We'll see if he struggles in that lane, because Aquaman has been really one of the stronger carries, I think. Venenu has really facilitated a lot of what we see out of both in the jungle and across the way, but Aquarius has really been, watching him in the solo lane, I think it's up to Space Station to give him the proverbial ball.
If Aquarius is able to make it happen, though, we have seen a lot of success for Space Station whenever Aquarius does get ahead. And so if I'm Trifecta, there might even be, I think, some prioritization around jungle solo picks, making sure to try and just get pressure selection choices. That seems to have had, I think, the best success for a lot of teams here in Season 6, and I can't really imagine that either Space Station or Trifecta would really want to stray away from that all too hard. I think it's really just going to boil down to, can Trifecta's dual lane match up to BaRRa and Jeff? And I think the answer is yes. The potential is definitely there. It just might be a little bit more complicated, I think, for Wowy and Eonic to have that instantaneous synergy like BaRRa and Jeff.
Yeah, Nanu here is certainly going to be a big part of what these teams, of what Space Station does, should they take the victory out. You see him playing the Pwash, he plays the Giannis very powerfully. A very interesting god pool for the mid lane. Just straight up, what's your take on Venenu this season?
I don't think that we've seen everything that Venenu has to offer yet. I haven't really been super, I haven't been super impressed yet with what's happened so far, but I don't think Venenu's also had a chance to really show us everything he's capable of.
Well, I'll have a chance right now, at least with his words. Let's catch up with Venenu and Finch and see what's going on before the game.
Hey, I'm here with Venenu, mid laner for Space Station. Happy to have you here with me. First thing I want to ask you about is you're on a team with BaRRa and Jeff and Andy, all these guys are so popular in the scene. Is there any extra pressure when you play with these guys that everyone loves so much?
Yeah. If I do bad, I'm gonna get roasted to beyond belief, and it's not gonna be very good.
It can't be their fault, right? If anything happens, so that's how it has to go. Right?
Yeah, it's gonna be any of the other three's fault.
Exactly. Well, I was talking just now with Ducky on that side. He said that they actually burned Lasbra's bacon and that went for breakfast, and there's a chance that maybe he might be a little bit off. Is there any way you guys can capitalize on that if he's still focusing too much on the breakfast that went wrong?
Yeah, probably just focus down on his bacon that's burnt. Maybe we could buy him some fresh bacon once we win. But yeah.
That would be nice if you were able to. Well, they had a bit of a rough start getting started. It really looked like they weren't quite comfortable just yet. How comfortable are you guys feeling about your chances of being able to take this set home and like with how your practice has been going?
I think it's going to be a nice 3-0 easy victory. I mean, they have a weekend and he's, weekend. So easy dub.
Easy dub for you. I know you mentioned weekend. Is there anything else on there that looks like maybe an opening for you guys that you can try and exploit here in this matchup without giving too much away?
Ducky. Yeah, Ducky for sure. Aqua is like 10 times better than him, so easy Ducky exploit.
Okay, well maybe there's a chance there that they'll be able to grab it with that one. I know that you guys said that you were gonna get them some more bacon if you win this. So you're gonna cook it yourself, maybe go pick it up, like stop at like an IHOP or something. What's the plan there?
I don't know who's cooking. Andy? Andy's a good chef, so yeah, he's gonna cook it up.
All right, well, good to know. Got some good chefs and some good players over here on Spacestation Gaming. Well, good luck to you guys in your matchup. Thanks, man, for talking with me. We'll get it back over to the desk.
Certainly things cooking over there for the teams and the players. And, I think it's funny watching Venenu speak there. Finch asks him, what's the strategy here? And it might seem like playful banter. I think Space Station actually believes that. I think they think that Aqua is 10 times better than Ducky, and their strategy is going to come out of the short side.
It seems as though it's not just Ducky that they're looking to topple. Weekend as well. The specific call-outs from Venenu. And I think that is a really interesting perspective that Venenu brought us here today, because now with that in mind, I'm going to definitely be focusing how andinster and Aquarius work together to try and, I think, topple this Ducky Weekend combination. But at the same time, I definitely feel as though if there's going to be a confidence booster, that this is the kind of talk that needs to happen for Venenu to really feel it.
I believe it. I don't know if it's just for fun, but it certainly seems real. About as real as the picks and bans. Let's get right into game number one here. Space Station Gaming on the left side. They have the first pick and, of course, the first ban. Trifecta will answer back with two of their own. So as we look at the ban phase, we're going to see a Circuit ban here. We can very strong at Circuit. And Trifecta here, we usually see the King Arthur on this side of the ban phase.
And King Arthur, I think, isn't a necessity ban here. As odd as that might sound,
I agree.
I definitely feel as though both of these teams are willing to kind of take their chances, because I could see either Ducky or Aquarius looking for that Camazotz as an immediate pick response. The King Arthur threat doesn't feel as potent as it once was. I think because so many teams in competitive play have shown methods to bringing it down.
It's certainly deal withable, if you excuse my new verbiage. What really the deal with King Arthur is one, I mean, sure, he has been touched down a little bit as far as like the actual balance of the game is concerned, but I think players have also learned how to deal with him. We've seen it down in the minor league, even on the console side of things, just the ability to like collapse on him and spread out when he uses his abilities, not to get glad shielded, etc. So I like the adaptation the players have made, and I think that it's certainly led to a different story as far as where everything else has gone. The Shibbolake ban comes out, but Space Station does not want to deal with that King Arthur, and I think that's it's important to see King Arthur ban on this side of the table, because that kind of tells us that Space Station aren't interested in playing the King himself. Naja ban here for Trifecta. What are the options?
I feel like that was a really smart ban takeaway for that Trifecta just made, but it does leave open the Merlin, and I doubt that Venenu is going to be very upset about the fact that he's going to be able to play Merlin in the mid lane.
Merlin absolutely strikes me as a Venenu character, and part of me isn't ready to describe why. It just seems like something that Venenu would play well. He plays the Morgan really well. He plays Giannis really well, which are kind of odd. They're different than most of the other mages, and Merlin kind of is in between that world, I feel.
But this is really open-ended from Space Station. They haven't really revealed a whole lot with this Merlin selection, other than the fact that we're trying to deal damage, because that is one thing that I think Merlin does better than a lot of other mages right now, is just that capability to deal so much damage. The response pick for the Freya is kind of interesting to see from Trifecta because I'm not 100% that that's going to be for the mid lane or even the ADC. It's just a rather interchangeable pick, but I don't necessarily like Freya when I'm trying to deal with a Merlin.
I mean, what we see the most out of Merlin has been up and down, in all honesty. Nobody really just set on whether Merlin is really... I shouldn't say that. Merlin has not exactly won a lot of his games here at the pro level or the minor league level. I think the best that we've seen out of Merlin was pretty prime, and he stayed mostly in that fire stance. So again, focusing on the damage. But like you said, Taco, fits in almost any composition. Not really some of the other mages, you need certain characters around there. Ratatoskr and Bellona, this is very vanilla, and I guess not unheard of for Spacestation Gaming in all honesty.
I think the Space Station just wanted the pressure, obviously, and I think the Bellona can definitely bring it, but the problem I see for Trifecta now is trying to decide whether this Achilles is going to be intended for the jungle now. Weekend could have possibly been chosen to pilot this, or
Sure.
if it's going to be flexed into that solo lane role.
One of the big things that Freya does here is provide pressure. She can be in the mid lane, she can be in the hunter lane, but when she's in that mid lane, she's going to be able to just clear the wave. That's what her strength is at the moment. And the Arachne pick, I love this selection, multiple reasons. One, Freya's going to be able to provide pressure, which should allow Trifecta to go into the enemy jungle. There has been some changes with respects to how the jungle experience works out with invades, but it's still an attractive option. And then, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, Taco, Arachne, one of Weekend's better characters.
It's also going to be able to match some of that pressure that I think the Ratatoskr and Bellona were, or Space Station, I think very clearly made it obvious that they just want that heavy jungle solo side pressure. So Trifecta need to find some way to match that. Otherwise, Ducky winds up in a possible scenario of just getting absolutely abused and having all that jungle stripped away from him.
Yeah, it certainly can be a little bit rough there. Trifecta on the other side, looking at their bans. Naja, a little bit of a flex ban, both a jungler and a support, if you ask me. Hell, also a solo laner, maybe a mid laner, maybe an ADC if you ask Taco in her ranked games. The Fafnir and the Bacchus ban come out from Trifecta. They're certainly focused on Mr. Hindla, whereas Space Station Gaming, unconvinced that Freya will go into the mid lane, ban out a Zhang Kui, who is absolutely a mid laner, and one more character.
Maybe a Vulcan or an Isis ban takeaway for Lasbra. I think that those are both picks that he probably feels a little bit more comfortable on. They're also picks that I think can go or deal pretty nicely with Merlin because they have rather safe lane clear, but it's going to be the Outwash instead. Space Station trying to remove even the slightest possibility of Trifecta getting some map denial.
Exactly. That's what I see. Both the Outwash and the Zhang Kui would have those two characters have in common is incredible area denial, but more importantly, siege potential, both on the offensive and the defensive side. If you're defending and you pop a Zhang ult or an Outwash ult, the enemy has to kind of walk away. Space Station has struggled sieging bases in the past, so by banning this out, they're enabling themselves to play a better game, or perhaps a game more fitting for their strategy and approach to Smite.
The Artio lock-in, though, from Trifecta is going to give a little bit of that actual lockdown potential, I think. The Kerpa field should actually work out pretty well when trying to just pinpoint this Merlin.
Yeah.
The big thing, I think, is just going to be how quickly can Trifecta smother and burst the Merlin down. They've got some nice components already between the Freya and the Arachne, but I'm still looking for that big all-in damage potential from Trifecta, because Arachne and Freya, sure, they deal a ton of damage in a short period of time,
Sure.
but those do require some in-hands, a little bit of auto, and you have to be up and personal and like right on top of the action, which could give some turn and burn situations for Space Station.
Well, the Jeff tank has locked in their duo lane, Ganesha and Hachiman. I think that this is also very good, talking about Space Station Gaming, more specifically to their team and their approach, right? We talk about the metagame, we talk about what's popular in the Pro League, we talk about what's popular as far as the strength in the game, and then you also have to look at what an individual team is strong at. The Assassins, the Warrior supports, that's not what the Black and Yellow do well. When Jeff has a traditional Guardian in his hands, you saw them highlight the Sylvanas, now going the Ganesh. I think this is the best look for Space Station if they're trying to be successful, is to enable Jeff to be on that traditional Guardian. Trifecta lock in Raijin for the mid lane.
And Raijin, as the last bit lock-in, he gives that burst damage that I was asking for Trifecta, but I am a little bit concerned as far as the escape is concerned for Trifecta, because Spacestation having the Ganesha, I think that silence is super strong against a lot of different members. The Freya, the Artio even, and the Achilles. A lot of abilities that could possibly be stopped because of Jeff there.
At the same time, the Arachne doesn't really worry about it. You pop bolt stuff, and then you run in and just lean on your basics attacks and your passive. So might be an upside for Trifecta over there. What I like about the Raijin, though, is, sure, burst damage like you were saying, but also control. You can fear or taunt the Merlin in, prevent that blink. That's going to be a big deal for Trifecta, is trying to keep Merlin under wraps and local.
I think overall, though, like looking at the big picture, Space Station, to me, feel like they have a composition that allows for a little bit more, escape.
We'll certainly see if they escape to a victory. Game number 1 on the way. It's going to be Spacestation Gaming versus Trifecta. Let's get right into it.
Thanks so much, Tom and Taco on the desk. Yeah, it's time to get into the SPL game. The one thing to mention, Ryan, really, is these two teams, both on paper, have had struggles at the start of the season.
Yes.
But I think a lot of people are kind of looking at Space Station Gaming going, well, they're not playing well, but they just took on Dig and the Knights.
That was a really tough open for them, for sure. And Trifecta didn't have a particularly easy open themselves. So both these teams have had tough opponents right at the very beginning, and that makes this set all the more important for them, is that they need to get off to a better start here in this one, because you don't want to drop to 0-3 if you're Space Station, or the same could be said for Trifecta. You really want to get off to a pretty good start here.
On top of that, I'm just looking through the roster here. Venenu's starting off Bancrofts 2 this time round, interestingly enough.
Yeah, usually this is kind of reserved for those gods that are going to be in the middle of the fights. I'm thinking the Jean-Qui is pretty good on. Agni, I think it's great on. But
Rushing it?
I don't, yeah, you want to start it because it's a lot of power early on, and even though you don't have mana sustain, you can try and get Totem of Coup for yourself, and then you don't have to worry about it quite as much, and the lifesteal isn't too bad. But Merlin's one of those gods that I could see this working on pretty well. It does mean that he's delaying his CDR, he's not getting Mage's Blessing, which is usually really, really good for him, but if you want to stay and be really aggressive and stay in fire stance a lot of the time, or try and barrel stuff him with arcane stance, I think it can be pretty good. I'm open to it.
Well, we're starting to see duo lane be a duo lane again after the invades of the supports for a week or two. Now with a couple of changes coming through, we can see that the supports have gone back to their usual starting position.
And that's because of that Ghost Minion just makes it so that you're hitting level 2 after wave number 2, no matter what. And look at this, andinster's actually on the left-hand side. This could be a gank opportunity. He has Blink, and he's got full Acorn as well.
And straight in and straight away. Wowy's already deleted. The
dead.
Acorn did most of the work. Sprint popped, and Eonic could fall down too. And he's just trying to get in range with the speed buff. He may still be able to do so. The dash is good, and Andy picks himself up 2 kills at a minute and a half in the game.
So we saw Sino do this a lot coming towards Worlds, where he actually doesn't pick up Assassin's Blessing, he instead picks up the Acorn 2, clears speed, and immediately buys Acorn 3. So he's got a ton of power, a ton of movement speed. He just doesn't have that extra camp damage, he doesn't get that sustain, but it means his power level is super high, and these early ganks work. But Sino was doing it in mid, andinster instead goes over to duo.
That was his speed to red to babies at purple, I believe, for level 2 is what he did, right? Hit level 2 off the babies at purple, then ganks the lane. And you're guaranteed to see them in the lane in phase because of the fact that you mentioned, the level 2 situation, and you want to be there for that Ghost Minion. So the pressure already being punished by Space Station Gaming there, allowing this Freya and, of course, the Artio combination to pressure the wave early.
And those are really good early game gods as well, so andinster setting these 2 behind is definitely a good look for Space Station. Space Station's playing this really passively here to let the minions clear themselves so that they can bait Eonic and Wowy deeper down the lane, because look at all the ward coverage that Space Station has on their own side of the jungle. They've got oracles, they have the ward by purple buff as well. They want the wave to push towards them so that Wowy in particular, who's very vulnerable pre-level 5, has no sense of escape, is in a lot of trouble should andinster show back up.
And Andy's just going to pick up his speed buff again. The ping's down on the red buffs. As you know, they'll be coming up sooner rather than later. At the moment, we cannot be involved just yet. We're only saying that because Andy's already ganked it a minute and a half in, but mainly Arachne in the early game, looking for the farm.
Exactly. She can fight very, very well, but really wants to bring you into her territory. Wants to use those webs.
Chippy skin.
Yeah, she's
That's
nice
the first time
and
I've seen it actually in game. That's why.
Really? Oh, it's adorable and still kind of creepy to me, but it's cute. I'm not mad about it for sure. This is a pick that can really snowball in the mid game very, very well. I think a lot of people incorrectly feel like Arachne needs to get off to this unbelievable start in order to make it work, and I really don't think that's the case. She can get 2 or 3 items online, 3 or 4, and then start just two-shotting your mages. It's definitely a possibility.
A little bit late for Andy to get in range to try and strip away the red, but he'll put a bit of poke pressure on and now rotate back towards Duo. Did he steal that?
I think so. I think Lasbra was,
wow,
was
I
holding his abilities.
Did not think that was the case.
Yeah, I know. He literally just walked right in slowly and stole it away.
And that gets even worse because then they lose the purple off the back of that too. Bit of pressure onto Jeff, but he's not going to be too much doom and gloom at the moment. Really is the pace setter at the moment. He's andinster wherever he goes at the moment. It's only 4.5 minutes in, but the pressure's all been there.
And this is what Space Station fans should want to see, is andinster being the catalyst for this team. When they were looking really, really good towards the end of last year, as Andy's looking for Lasbra, gets his purification beads. Lasbra, no jump available, and Andy finds his third in a row.
Just found a situation to be in, and now we can try to take a trade with andinster, but Andy gets the better of that 1-2. He really is setting the pace for this team early.
And this is what he was doing towards the end of last year, where everyone was starting to think, well, maybe Space Station can make a run at Worlds. It was really because Aqua and Andy in particular were playing really, really well. So if someone were to ask me going into this set, what's the easiest way that Space Station just dominate this set? It's that andinster has games just like this, where he gets off to an early lead and looks like a dominant force in the jungle.
Well, it will make Lasbra start to second guess when he uses Escape now or his Thunder Crash just to reposition for the most part. Remember, he did lose beads on that engagement too, so it's still a window of opportunity now for Space Station Gaming to try and capitalize on. andinster's Blink is available again, so don't be surprised to see Raijin maybe looked at again in the mid lane.
And that's the type of aggressive play I love watching from andinster. Sometimes he goes through these phases where he's not playing as aggressively, seems to be losing, I don't know if it's confidence or just the decision making to go in those 1v2 scenarios because, well, it's 1v2. I shouldn't be able to win that. But recognizing the Lasbra's jump is down and Weaken's only level 4 and hasn't backed and finished off his first item, I mean, that's a great opportunity for you to play aggressively. And I don't know how many junglers automatically take that fight, but when andinster's feeling it and he's playing well, he's always one that will do that, and that's a good sign for him.
I think it's a very good point you make there to do with the fact that Andy seems to play through how the game's going. You know,
Yes.
like if his team's doing well and he's having a good start to the game, things will be. It's the way I look at like a Sylvanas player, right? If you land that first pull, you're in the zone.
Right.
But unless you get that first pull to connect, you start second guessing yourself and thinking it over too much sometimes, or just not finding the right window.
I think andinster, when running hot, is still one of the best players in the entire world. It's just a
consistency.
matter of consistency for him. But hot, like when Andy's running hot, I would take him over just about any jungler in the world. He really does still have it when he's feeling it.
Well, the red buff invade was over here, blinking from Andy, and straight
That
away,
was sick.
those Dharmic pillars from Jeff were right on the money too. But Weaken's response time was pretty fairly good as well. He gets his ultimate off in response, the trade out.
But again, this is what I want to see from Space Station. When Space Station's losing games they shouldn't be losing, it's because they sit around and let the enemy do everything they want to do and dictate the pace. I don't care if Space Station wastes a blink and an ult there to try and get a kill onto Weaken. It's not even a waste. They got Weaken's ultimate out, and now he's much more vulnerable. Andy has his ultimate up, and just one through the Cosmos guarantees a kill onto Weaken from this position. This is a much better looking Space Station.
Completely agree. Think about Weaken now. I mean, he's no real gank pressure without the ultimate available to get in and out. Sure, he can blink in and get aggressive, but if he sticks around too long, he could be in a bit of trouble. So Space Station still with the power.
The other thing that the start for andinster is really doing, the fact that he's consistently invading purples and reds and back camps, is it's letting Venenu free farm in the mid lane and consistently take their own side backs. And because of that, he's huge. I mean, he's the top of the XP per minutes chart over both solo laners right now because he has effectively been a solo laner. And Merlin's a character that can do quite a bit when he gets a lot of farm. The Space Station's really using the map well to make sure that everyone is eating.
And the major focus you can really see is all on the left-hand side of the map. With Andy spending time there, he's not focusing on Aquarius or Venenu. He's just let them do their duty of farming, trying to get to that mid-stage of the game.
And this is exactly what we expect to see. A red buff about to be up. Where's andinster?
Well,
right there. And look at this. Eonic's actually
that.
on the right-hand side because they're all ganking onto Aquarius.
Yeah, I think they're trying to pressure the right instead. And it is Aquarius focus, pinned in place, but an Eagle's rally gets him away. Left-hand side already, Andy did get that red buff down by the looks of it, and now he's looking for some pressure for the purple too. Wowy just being stripped of experience consistently on this left-hand side, and now he may get ganked.
andinster's here. Wow, he still has that ultimate though, and a wave's coming in.
Good timing from
Quick
Wowy
ult,
there,
yeah.
just to use his ult, but Venenu is around the corner, and I don't think he's spotted it just yet. The damage is solid, and he
beads.
will actually get the beads out of Wowy too.
Good Vortex from Venenu forced that out as well. Good use of Arcane stance, where the Frost stance you need line of sight in order to make sure that Frostbolt hits. Arcane, you can throw a lot of stuff through the walls. It's your better sort of sneaky damage in those sorts of situations. So good understanding of what Merlin can do from that position, and it costs Wowy his tier 1 tower. Space Station's really keeping their foot on the gas pedal so far.
He has a consistent bleed or wound that's been opened up here so far. And you saw it there, Trifecta. Yes, they found a result. They got a blue buff on the right-hand side. But they lost a tier 1 tower and a set of beads in response. Trifecta definitely having to just hold out for the time being here.
Now, that blue buff seems a little bit weird. I mean, you know they're invading on red, you know they're invading on purple, so why would you send your support over there? But
Too far behind to fight, really.
Exactly. They can't. That is an uncontestable invade on the left-hand side, so at least get some farm for Eonic and for Ducky and for Weekend, and keep it out of Aquarius' hands. I've got no problem with that call from Trifecta. It does, however, leave Wowy really on an island, and that was just good identification by Space Station that they have that window.
It's 2-level difference now between the two Hunter players, Wowy and BaRRaCCuDDa. BaRRaCCuDDa on the Hachiman, seen a bit more rise to fame again, mainly due to the banner buff, I guess, more than anything else. He just increased his wave clear a little bit in the early game, and the safety of Hunters has always been a thing. He's always one of the safer types.
Yeah, he just... Hachiman doesn't have a whole lot of weaknesses, and so when... I think that it's just kind of the natural ebb and flow that banner buff certainly didn't hurt him. But I also don't think it makes a world of difference. It's just kind of a reminder buff that, oh yeah, Hachiman's pretty good. And then you play him, and then, oh yeah, he is pretty good. I get to do all this kind of stuff and not really get punished for it.
Fits the same sort of vein as his Jingwei, you know what I mean? Like, super safe and farming, but at the same time can put out damage.
And can play more aggressively than Jingwei with a lead. And that's something that I mean, in a game like this, you can really see take effect.
2 fights at the same time, one in mid and one on the right-hand side. Aquarius does have his ultimate available, trying to hold on as long as possible, giving his teammates in mid a bit of chance to pressure, but Eonic and Lasbra perfectly safe under the tower. Nothing cost.
Good attempt on that right-hand side. I think Ducky could have done a slightly better job of body blocking and maybe forced Aquarius to use that ultimate. As soon as Eagle's Rally is down, that means Fatal Strike and Nightcrawler on the table. So close, but no cigar.
Weekend tries to rotate around the corner, but Space Station know exactly what was up. Most of the focus from Space Station has been on the tier 1 tower here. Really looking for the extra objectives, it seems.
Why sit around and let Trifecta get all the farm back that you've been taking from them? This is the right idea. Keep the pressure on them. And actually, I love what andinster is doing. He's on this left-hand side now, just continuing to farm and letting BaRRaCCuDDa be the one to force in mid with the rest of the team.
And he can always go at the sky if he wants to on this Ratatoskr. Lasbra gets the damage out to clear some of the wave. Tier 1's getting low. Lasbra, Eonic both have to fall back for now. The tier 1 will fall. Space Station got what they came for.
This is where you go Gold Fury. I mean, you probably don't have timer on Weekend's speed buff, so you don't know that that's coming up, but you just poked out Eonic a tiny bit. You want to just keep the pressure going. Maybe they're waiting for a couple power spike items. I mean, BaRRa is sitting at Balance Blade now. He has Aussie, so now he can actually tank a little bit on that Gold Fury. Venenu should be pretty close to getting a Spear of the Magus or a Spear of Desolation. andinster should nearly be done with that on Achilles. You've got options coming to you pretty quickly for Space Station, but as soon as they get those, I think it's time to start pulling gold. You can't be forcing down tier 2 towers this early on without a contest.
Pretty decent gold lead as well for Space Station has developed. I know the experience is obvious to see, but the gold, 3,500, that does add up quite a bit. Those items start to come online a little bit quicker, which can cause a couple of problems, and it's going to be the Assy for BaRRaCCuDDa. I'm still not sold on this Assy start, you know?
Yeah, it's a little low on power.
Yeah,
it's a little low on power. I agree with you. I think that it's if you're going to have a slower start, Devo Gloves are better, but with the gameplay that Space Station has, where they're putting pressure on the duo lane and getting Wowy behind, getting the early boots as a power spike and not having that slow startup, it actually makes more sense.
Does bring them online a little bit quicker, so to speak, and be able to box potential, but I'm just worried, like, Pen's great and all. You know, I know that's one of the reasons is the penetration's there to help out, but it is lacking power, so you're not going to be packing as much of a punch in the later stages.
You know what? Flat Pen is more damage than power, though, at the end of the day. So
that's fair.
I bet you it's really not that big of a difference in overall DPS, and it's a much faster curve.
I'm not a pro. I just don't see power, and that's one thing
That's
I know
fair.
the Hunters do care about. Weekend, though, was rotating around to Ducky, but Space Station Gaming on their way over too, and Weekend will force them back for now, but Ducky, under the tier 1, doesn't get any help in time and ends up dropping to Venenu.
Just quick damage. Ducky a little bit too late
This group
on that ultimate. Yeah, Venenu and the rest of Space Station have really just been running it down. It was running it down left, now we're running it down mid, and then they run it down in solo lane. And they just keep on putting pressure on Trifecta. And this is what you do against a newer team, is you really test the strands. You know, you really stretch them out thin and see how well they can play the map as a unit, which is the hardest thing to do when you're putting together a new squad, is understand how to play the map as 5. And Trifecta right now are failing the test.
And objective-wise, I mean, if they've got the likes of Merlin uncontested in fire stance, those objectives will fall ridiculously quick. Andy, though, in the jungle has found Weekend, and Weekend's going to have to ult away. didn't use beads there whatsoever, did Andy, and at the same time, Weekend didn't have his available, but blue buff was successfully invaded.
Man, andinster has a nearly 2,000 gold lead on Weekend individually.
And that's like a whole item.
That is a whole item. Now that's really, really great, obviously, but it means that andinster does need to be pretty careful because he's worth an awful lot of gold, and as soon as he's off the map for Space Station, if he gets killed, then this 7,000 gold lead is now effectively a 5,000 gold lead, because that's where, you know, a large portion of this lead is for Space Station. He should still be playing aggressive. He should still be trying to force this lead up, but I do think that he needs to be cognizant that he's a big part of what Space Station has on the map.
So now with all the tier 1s being down and the major objectives across the map, only real attention you could look at is maybe a fire giant. But at 14 minutes in, you may be doing well, but you don't want to get overconfident.
No, this is where you try and steal away a couple reds and a couple purples and just wait for that next Fury to respawn. Tier 2 tower seems a little bit ambitious, but I don't mind if Space Station starts working together as a unit still grouping as 5 and moving around the map. But I do want to see them try and relax a little bit on trying to push towers at this point.
The hunt for Wowy begins, and Venenu and andinster on the left-hand side in the jungle too, just trying to stop the rotation coming out from Eonic and Weaken where they can, and keep this pressure going, making sure Wowy doesn't get any free farm without being contested. But the rotation out of Ducky towards mid is actually putting a bit of pressure on Andy.
Good damage on andinster, but he's got a lot of HP with this Blackthorn hammer. He's going to be working towards now a Runeforged hammer. Definitely light on pen in this build. I don't love seeing 3 items with no penetration, but remember his
Ratatoskr, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of physical pen strip, and there's not a lot of physical protection on the other side. It's a sovereignty for Eonic that'll give everyone a little bit, but then it's only the Glad Shield for Ducky. So even the soul laner andinster can still be dealing relevant damage. I would love to see after this Runeforged hammer a Titan's Bane, because during the time that it's going to take you to finish the Runeforged hammer and build your pen option, I'll bet you there's going to be a lot more physical protection on the map. I would like to see it just that you can go percent pen from that position and end up feeling pretty okay about your overall build.
Red buff on Trifecta side of the map is about to spawn in about 30 seconds time, and you can already see Space Station Gaming has started to group up yet again to keep the pressure on this tier 2 on the left-hand side of the map. Same can be said, though, from Aquarius, who's also on the other side right now, right-hand side, trying to pressure there. Does have his teleport available too if he does need to get to this fight, and it's upgraded.
And it's the red buff's up so that Space Station can posture around this tier 2, take the buff anyways, and just be ready to aggress at a moment's notice. Speaking of which, Weaken gets aggressed on right away by Andy.
Damage
Andy going to use the beads, but this is a fight that Weaken probably doesn't win.
I don't know. I think Weaken ended up winning that one overall. I mean, he got the beads out of andinster,
sure.
and he also got the ultimate. Didn't cost him anything at all. Eonic, though, he may take a trip back to base if he's not careful. Aquarius is around the back, and I don't know if they realize that Bellona's there. Weaken's there to slow this down a little bit. Eonic basing in front of him, but Aquarius not interested. His team, meanwhile, are all focusing the tier 2 and Wowy.
Classic soul laner up down. That gets him killed, but it takes a couple ultimates in order to get him, and that opens the door for this tier 2 tower. Trading Aqua for a tier 2, definitely worth it for Space Station, especially because Ducky's the one who gets that kill onto Aquarius, and he's the closest one in level to him, so that shutdown bonus doesn't go to someone like Weaken, who could have really used that extra gold and XP.
Solo laner for 1,500 gold.
Yeah, we take those.
I think it's a pretty good trade. Not only that, the back position. It means it's even worse for Wowy in that lane now if he wants to try and stay there, because there's just no towers to fall back to. He's going to be so deep around the next objective on this left-hand side, and that is going to be the Fury that's spawning right about now.
They know that andinster's ult is down and purification beads are down. Trifecta's down almost 10,000, but I love this gold Fury pull. You got to try and pull it somewhere.
They've got to do it quick, and Lasbra has the drums of war if he's needed. Trifecta will get the primal Fury. The fight after the fact is Jeff goes in. He's still got the Dharmic Pillar available. No, cancel that. It's not available at all. Aqua's here.
He teleported in. Wowy dead to rights. Has the Aegis, but
still alive.
wow, that peel was actually great. Eonic had a huge stun to save his life. And that's actually enough to get Wowy out.
Tell you what, that last shot from BaRRRA nearly connected with Wowy. It would have been a kill, I'm sure. But immediately as Trifecta fall back, I thought you'd see Space Station pressure for the Phoenix. Instead, it's the tier 2 in mid, because this is where they've got minions.
Exactly. Then no wave on the left-hand side. So they'd love to get that Phoenix, I'm sure, but just not the option. Losing Primal Fury in order to get a kill and another tier 2, I think is totally fine still for Space Station. They did a good job of keeping the pressure on, and Aqua's teleport was absolutely perfect to keep Trifecta at bay.
Well, with how this game's gone so far, the talk from Space Station this week has been like, hey, we may win, we may not. They've erred on the side of caution, I guess is the best way of putting it. But coming into this one, they look pretty strong so far. 10,000 gold lead in less than 20 minutes. Trifecta are going to have some answers in the set overall, let alone this game.
They're still behind the 8-ball for sure, but same sort of situation. Do you pull the Pyromancer knowing that Space Station has to back?
BaRRaCC doesn't know Weaken was behind him, and BaRRaCCuDDa has to beat and dash away. Spider's still giving chase, and Weaken's already up in the sky. Last result, a little bit early, but it will keep Andy busy, allowing Ducky to get in and take the life of BaRRaCCuDDa.
Aqua's keeping everybody else on the team busy. Whoop was there, but no extra follow-up from the rest of Trifecta. But now they probably get Pyromancer without a whole lot more contest. BaRRaCCuDDa just not ready for where Weaken was.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Pyro was started, and they were all watching it for a second, but the Fire Giant began, and Venenu's watching in the wings, just making sure it doesn't get taken there. I'm not sure about a trade overall with going for the Fire. I like the idea for a second, though.
Yeah, test it. If they're there, okay, we just get Pyromancer. It's no problem at all. Now, I've got no problem with that call from Trifecta. May as well try and get the bigger objective. If Space Station gets caught sleeping, then maybe we've got a window back into this game.
What we've seen so far is Space Station focus on the objectives, but just that window there was the first moment around the Pyromancer where two members were left stranded to an extent, a little bit overextended, no teammates around him, and Trifecta punished him quite heavily.
That's a good sign for Trifecta, but they do need to get more of those if they want to come back in this one. Still down 8,000 gold at 19 minutes. And these power items for Space Station are starting to come online. It's a Shaman's Ring for Venenu. That's going to up his damage considerably. And Andy finished off that Runeforged.
And into the jungle he goes, looking for a potential pick onto Weaken, who beats immediately to avoid the dunk down and the knock-up. Spiderweb avoided. And immediately Jeff will just zone them away as the rest of Space Station now rotate to where the minions are. At the tier 2 tower on the right-hand side, the final tower, the Trifecta have standing.
BaRRaCCuDDa needs to be careful, though. They know he has no relics at all and already down about a third of his HP, but there goes the tower, and Aquarius is going in.
What a great Eagles rally that was. Ducky has to alter way defensively. Lasbra got some damage off from the Drums of War, and that actually helps out Weaken to secure the kill. Ducky back into the fray, but a little low on health, and he's got to be careful about his positioning here. Acorns for days from andinster. He's still going in on Venenu, though, and Venenu will pick him up.
Lasbra dashing in aggressively, and the burn is real. Ven turns and knocks down Weaken with some ease. Andinster still trying to chase out Lasbra. Thunder Crash up just in time to get the brand new mid laner out of danger for Trifecta. BaRRaCCuDDa just, it has to be really careful in those spots. And I'm not saying that he wasn't. He's really in an okay spot overall from that position, but Lasbra's positioning was great. Over the wall, starts using those Tycho drums to move BaRRaCCuDDa around and put out damage on him simultaneously. I loved Lasbra's positioning in that fight. The dash in, maybe not so much, but outside of that, I think that Lasbra's new mid lane instincts to play over the wall from that position served him really well.
Talking about Lasbra a little bit more, playing the Raijin, no real surprise to see the fact he's gone for more of a penetration style build with the Divine Ruin, which is going to be quite impactful this game, I'd say, especially with a Bancross in mid lane.
It's not bad. It's definitely not necessary, I would say. It's not one of those things where it's like, oh, well, we lost because we didn't have an anti-heal.
It's not an obvious anti-heal situation, but when you've got Asses and you've got the likes of a Bancrofts and you've still got some other gods in the game.
Yeah, Rat's having incidental healing. Bellona can stay in Scourge stance. It's not bad. He's going for cooldown boots, so you want another pen item in that slot, and maybe they were so far behind that he doesn't want to go Spear of Desolation, so it makes sense.
Well, Aquarius was zoning away as the Fire Giant was done, but the Eagles rally didn't get him away from the danger, and that last little taunt from Lasbra and the Drums of War came up big. We can still go in on BaRRaCCuDDa, though, and BaRRaCCuDDa with no relics will end up falling down. Andy on the back is taking on Wowy, and Wowy's buying a lot of time as Jeff is being brought down by Ducky and Eonic.
Great execute by Ducky. It's just a matter of when Venenu's cooldowns are coming back up. It's a 3-for-2 for Trifecta. And, I thought that they had a chance to take this fight because we knew that Venenu's relics were down, but Venenu took no damage during that fight, really. It was everybody else that ended up falling. Weaken is all over BaRRaCCuDDa in these fights, and there's just so little you can do to really peel away an Arachne in these situations.
And that's why I'm the Ganesh pick here, where I'm like, okay, Ganesh works in the laning phase, but on team fights, I mean, nothing's going to stop this Arachne. I mean, Tom was saying it on the desk too. It can cause a couple of problems for some of the gods that get in close range, but an Arachne?
She just goes up into the web, and you can't peel her. That's where the difference has been, is really good use of that ultimate by Weaken so far. And Trifecta's kicking, man. I mean, they're down 10k, but they just got an Oni Fury. Now they've got a little bit of map pressure. I don't know that Space Station's going to have trouble clearing those waves, though.
All right, where are we going with BaRRaCCuDda's build? Is it going to be
Bloodforge?
A Bloodforge?
Yeah.
Or a Solia?
Bloodforge.
I was joking. Of course it's going to be a Bloodforge, unless it's going to be a real late depths.
No, I don't think that's the call either. He just needs... He's trying to build more lifesteal so that he can stand and fight up against Weaken.
Now the Divine Ruin even helps more.
It does. The Divine Ruin looks really good against the double lifesteal build. Lasbra looking into the future a little bit with his selection.
You got the script.
I don't mind this Bloodforge option for BaRRa. It does concern me a little bit just because there's some threat that if Trifecta wins another fight pretty quickly and then Space Station has to defend a little bit and BaRRaCCuDDa doesn't have the time to farm that up, it's going to take a lot of time. It's just an expensive item in order to build. But the idea, I think, is perfect. You want to be able to actually stand and fight up against this Arachne.
This time, Space Station won't pull the Fire Giant. They're looking to pressure as a team. Eonic going to lead in the charge from Trifecta's point of view, but the blink from Andy to the backline, looking at Lasbra. Lasbra beats and dashes away, a bit delayed, but in the sky already, Andy's there, and a knock up on 2. During the Dharmic Pillars, into the Eagles rally. Ducky gets blocked. Backside, Venenu still alive as Weaken was trying to keep them zoned away, but Wowy is now dead.
Beads used by Weaken as well, but mounted archery is there. BaRRa looking for some revenge.
Risky.
Actually has to get a shell from JeffHindla because there was some turn potential there. But that was just andinster going, all right, I'm done. I'm sick of losing fights now, so I'm going to win us one. That was a beautiful Dharmic Pillars by Jeff. It dissects the fight beautifully. But andinster, I mean, so many junglers see the enemy mid-mage, beads, and dash away, and they go, oh, well, I'm going to rattle that guy. He's got no way to get away from me.
I thought you would too. I was predicting it.
Exactly, but his presence of mind to land on the tanks, knock them up, keep them on the Dharmic Pillars, and just insta-win the fight for Space Station. That was really beautiful. By the way, Aqua hit a 3-man Eagles rally.
Yes.
You really lose. It's hard to lose a fight when you do that.
Biggest difference, though, is between that is the fact that Space Station actually played their lead that time. It felt like the first time with the Fire Giant, they were more focused on trying to do a cheeky fire while also defending against the Trifecta onslaught of the team coming in. This time, they take the fight 5-on-5 in the jungle without leashing the Fire Giant beforehand, and they come up massive there.
And again, they don't let Trifecta get set. They don't let Trifecta kind of talk about how they want to take this fight, who's our target selection going to be. This Trifecta team is still one of those rosters that has had the least amount of time together in practice and just playing with one another. No former teammates on the squad or anything like that. So it's really, really important that you just keep on punching them in the mouth. Just keep them on their heels.
Isn't it bullying at that point, though, if you're just going to keep punching the same dude who's down?
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Like,
what
you don't let him back up?
No, you don't.
Okay, maybe game 2.
You push him down, then you kick him while he's down. That's what it's about.
No, you pick him back up and then you punch him again. You at least bring him up to, you know.
Oh, you give him some
I
false hope.
Yeah,
That's very Hindu man of you.
it is. And that's how you lose a lot of games. That's why I sit in Diamond. Because I just can't. I just like, let's just give him a chance, you know? I feel bad for him.
No,
DC in the game, let's pause for him.
no,
You
never.
know? Never?
Actually, sometimes I do, but only if I've been winning recently.
Oh.
If I've been losing and you DC
Keep
against
the
me,
good
there's-
karma.
yeah,
no,
there's
that's fair.
chance.
I can see that. It's about karma and how
Right.
I've been losing a lot of games.
I deserve this.
That's why I DC'd him in the first place, you know?
You what now?
Taco gave me the power, you know?
No way. I've been asking
Just for a
that.
day. It was only a day, you know? I got to it was like work experience, you know? See what
Yeah.
the life of a CEO was like. Once or twice. Left-hand side, Phoenix Siege, though, coming out from Space Station. Aquarius keeping 3 members busy in the mid lane. Eonic can now arise, but Wowy has already used his ultimate defensively. And that's go time for Aquarius then, who pops the Thorns and stops Lasbra really getting any damage out there with his ultimate.
Fatal Strike too early. JeffHindla's
Beautiful.
ultimate is there, and andinster forces everyone back with that through the Cosmos. Good team peel there, as Aqua looked like he was way too deep, but Spacestation Gaming had his back.
That was the worst feeling in the world as Lasbra. He pops his ultimate and stares at the Bellona and goes, I can't hit you. You've got
Nope.
Thorns. I'm going to kill myself.
Yup, that's what Thorns does to you, man.
Onto the middle Phoenix we go then. No minions pour into the base just yet. At least fire minions, I should say. Jeff doing a good job of trying to slow down the advance from Trifecta and give a window for Space Station to get in and whack away at this Phoenix.
Lots of relics still up. Only Thorns and andinster's blink down on the side of Space Station, whereas no beads for Wowy or ultimate.
Aquarius goes on Weaken, and Weaken falls back straight away. Blinking from Ducky, though, gets the beads out of BaRRaCCuDDa. And BaRRaCCuDDa ends up charging back in, looking for the pick on Ducky.
Oh.
Ducky getting low, but Venenu has already destroyed the spider.
Man, that aggressive fire stance switch from Venenu, knowing that Trifecta's backline needs to back up, you just drop that dragon fire on behind him and then start burning them alive. He cooked them right there.
Straight over to the right side they go. No minions with them this time, Space Station Gaming, though, but they're still confident as Wowy being focused on the back fight by the lads of Aquarius. It was. I wasn't sure who it was hiding away in the back there. I was like, where is he? Dharmic Pillar's down from Jeff as well. We'll slow down Eonic, but Ducky has taken him down, and Aquarius is in a bit of trouble.
And andinster actually comes back to
Get a
peel
Phoenix.
instead of finishing off Eonic. Ven does end up getting Lasbra, with that last little tick of damage, but still, Space Station lose the duo lane. Doesn't matter. They get all 3 Phoenixes.
So within 4 minutes of this game starting, Space Station Gaming had a 3-0 lead, and we were already starting to feel the fact that we may be looking at a game 2 already with how this is going. At this point, you can periodically say it's going to go to a game 2 here, with Space Station taking the first one. What does Trifecta work on? Is it wards in the duo lane maybe?
Yeah,
Is it change the comp?
It's hard to say because this Freya never had a shot.
It never got off,
I
did
mean,
it?
it's not like, oh, we just don't pick the Freya because it didn't do anything. Well, it didn't do anything because what Space Station really focused us out. I think that maybe you try and pick some. I mean, I don't know. They had pretty good pressure.
I was going to say the pressure
map.
of the map is good.
Maybe you don't let andinster have the rat and just keep him off of the pick that got so much pressure for their squad. I think that wards in the duo lane early on is the big thing. Maybe pick weaken the rat himself so that they could keep it out of andinster's hands and give Trifecta some more early pressure. Trifecta, when they've been set and go into the team fights on their terms, have looked pretty good.
They have.
So I don't think that, as much of a stomp as this game is going to look like on paper, it really wasn't that one-sided for every single minute of the game. It was one-sided, don't get me wrong, but Trifecta did have some moments where they looked like they were fighting back. So even though this will probably go Space Station's way, Trifecta shouldn't feel too awful.
There was a fight at one point in time where they were like 7,000 gold down, yet they still came out on top of the fight and got a Pyromancer out of it. Eagles rally, though, connects with Weaken's Mush, and he gets burnt down by the searing pain of Venenu, not the Ares. And Wowy in the sky tries to buy some time, and with the combination of Lasbra, they do pick up a kill, but it's Venenu that's causing the most problems for everybody now. Already on a double as Andy cleans up Lasbra. Aquarius is having fun times with a bear in the jungle, and there's not much Trifecta can really do here.
Not a bad plan by Trifecta. Try and spring the trap around Fire Giant. You know that Space Station's going to get you if you just wait for them to walk into your base. They're only getting BaRRaCCuDDa. Man, I don't know what BaRRa did to Trifecta, but they really wanted to keep him down this game, despite the fact that Venenu got to free cast all game long and went 7-0-4. I think you might need to switch the targets a little bit going into game 2.
It's pretty funny. The duo lane, we give him a bit more experience, so the jungler says, okay, I can't gank at the usual time. Let me come a little bit earlier and find the pick there. Great play from andinster at the start, and Space Station Gaming take game 1 quite comfortably.
Yeah, well played. That is a Space Station Gaming that looks much more comfortable, much more confident this time around, and I think that confidence has always been a big thing for this squad. When they have it, and they're able to play aggressively, they look like a completely different squad, and that's no coincidence.
I think that's going to be an interesting thing now, what Trifecta do next. They're going to be thinking long and hard about this of where do we make changes, because I don't think there was an issue with the Freya pick, so to speak. He just, like you said, never had a chance to start.
Especially when Freya in this current iteration is so early game focused. In my mind, you really need to be clearing the waves early on and getting pressure on the enemy buffs. And when you shut her down that much, you're not going to be able to do a whole lot of anything. So that was a really good game plan by Space Station. I wouldn't have a problem necessarily if Trifecta go back to the Freya. They need to be sure that they aren't going to fall behind in the lane that it's in.
Maybe don't pressure the lane, maybe just farm it up, stay safe.
But then you're losing what Freya's good at, right? I mean, her level 1, not quite as good. Once she hits level 2, if she wants to keep a point out of Banish and instead put it into the 1, you get a lot of lane pressure very, very quickly. It's just they never got to level 2 before the gank happened.
Well, let's go to the desk to break down game 1 as we prepare for game 2.
Fantastic stuff there. Not really too much contest from Trifecta across the way, but I think it really was how Space Station started off. They just popped the cork and let it flow.
Early game Ratatoskr got to do everything that he wanted and some, and that was the problem for Trifecta. Early kills over in dual lane, automatically forfeiting that pressure, and when you're playing Freya, there's not really much wiggle room there for Wowy because BaRRaCCuDDa just got an immediate experience lead, and it wasn't even BaRRaCCuDDa that necessarily influenced the direction of that lane. It was just multiple repeat ganks from andinster where he was just constantly harassing either dual lane, mid lane, solo lane. It felt like he was just all over the map in comparison to Weekend, who I think were struggling to match some of that Ratatoskr mobility.
It was 4-1, and there was a 10,000 gold lead early on in the game. That really was very interesting because Space Station Gaming, I mentioned it even in the draft. I said it's a very vanilla draft, and we saw very vanilla gameplay, and that's all well and good as long as you do this sort of thing. andinster at minute 1 finds his way over here. Interesting that he steals away that purple buff, but then he steals away Wowy's life and then the support as well.
It's one of the more potent aspects of Ratatoskr because he has the capability to potentially skip getting an item like a mace is what you normally see, mace in the Assassin's Blessing, but with Rat, you can just opt to try and rush that acorn, and when you already have a little bit of movement speed, it's very difficult for gods like Freya or even the Raijin and stuff to escape, and that to me felt like the bigger picture issue for Trifecta is even at times when they were able to escape the Dharmic Pillar slows or escape the damage that was coming from Venenu and BaRRaCCuDDa, they couldn't run away from the Ratatoskr, and it only ever took a split second for Andy to deter them, and then immediately you would just see Aquarius following him up every single time.
And the Merlin as well. The trick to Merlin has been figured out. Fire stance. It's really that big. The protection shred, the raw damage it outputs. This young man right here, Venenu, playing center for Spacestation Gaming, looked really, really, really good on the Merlin. And like you said, and I'm going to go along with it, I think, sure, Venenu's the man. Ratatoskr, andinster had a lot to do with it. Aggro during the broadcast said, when Andy's hot, he can be one of the best players. The problem is, how often is he hot? Right now, things look preheated. He's good.
Well, he's making Venenu look good while he's at it, and that in itself, I think, is a huge confidence swing already for Space Station.
Yeah.
Game momentum, obviously, I think, going to be a little bit more in their favor, but it's not entirely over for Trifecta. I mean, this is a best-of-5 series, potentially, so if I'm Trifecta, one big thing I'm taking a look at is the Ratatoskr. I think that was just too much pressure from andinster and it had way too much early game influence that if Weekend's going to struggle even matching pace on an Arachne who is all about the early game, then perhaps it's time to just get that god away from andinster instead.
I agree. If you're going to try and match that early game, you got to look at things differently. I also just didn't like the draft out of Trifecta, in all honesty, but I like, it's interesting. I didn't like the draft out of Trifecta holistically, but I liked this draft better than what we've seen in the past. Worth noting, Trifecta coming in with a new coach now, Coach Cassier. He made a name for himself last year with some of the Insignum. That team looked pretty strong. He actually wound up subbing in and playing. I don't think we'll be seeing him on the keyboard and mouse anytime soon, but the gameplay and the thought process, I had a chance to talk to him last night, and he said very simply, he's like, look, I'm not going to be an interesting coach. I'm not going to bring you the Alpha Jackal warrior mid and crazy stuff. I'm just focused on bringing the victories. And I think that's what we saw out of Trifecta. Very what you would expect. Give weak and Arachne, etc. But I didn't like it into what SSG had drafted.
But I think this is an even worse case scenario for a brand new coach because when you're trying to pinpoint, okay, well, what went wrong in that last game? And the answer is literally everything.
Yeah.
There's really not much, I think, for a coach to really chime in on. Maybe just trying to influence like a different sort of play style or draft. But for the most part, I just think that Trifecta need to try and slow down that early game. If you see that Space Station is trying to come at you hot, then perhaps don't play the laning phase as pushed up. I mean, I'm not to say that, Wowy was egregiously out of position with Eonic or anything like that, but they were a little bit past the halfway mark, and that did make things exceptionally easier for andinster when it came to the gank.
I absolutely agree. What I will butt heads with you on is that I almost think this is a better spot to be in as a coach or a new coach, because you're sitting there like, well, I didn't really. I mean, that's on you guys. Push the buttons. But at the end of the day, I disagree with the Arachne selection into the Merlin. I think you have to be very wary of understanding that Merlin is at his most threatening in that melee range, like a Hebo character almost.
I guess it's just if you don't know why you're losing because you're just losing too quickly, it can be very tough for a coach or anybody to just come in immediately after the fact and be like, okay guys, well, this plan clearly did not work out, so let's just do something completely different. And there's a possibility that maybe even works out even better for a Trifecta, because from their current position, draft 1 certainly was not going to make it happen. So if they just want to completely 180 from trying, and I think it's a little bit too much of a force even, where Trifecta's composition, we talked about it right before we got into the start of that game 1, but Trifecta's comp wasn't necessarily one that permitted for them to have that heavy of counter initiation or
agree.
even re-initiation. I think it's the re-initiation that ended up biting them in the butt here, because Space Station, they could go in with the Ganesha Dharmic Pillars and force actives. They could go in with just Ratatoskr through the Cosmos or Bellona Eagles Rally, and it would force something. But you never really felt that same sort of impact from Trifecta. From those few aggressive plays that they tried to make happen, it was primarily coming off of weekend, and it almost always resulted in Trifecta burning ults defensively to get out.
Which is very interesting, bringing up the fact that a lot of it had to do with Weekend playing the Arachne. Now, if Weekend's going to be sort of the guy, the initiator, the Arachne's a really rough choice. Now, you can use the ultimate to get on out of there, I understand, but I'd rather see a character with a little bit more control there. And again, I'm going to say it for the fourth time, I didn't like the spider into Merlin. Letting Merlin go through, an interesting experiment. Maybe we don't see that again in game number 2. But if we do, Taco, more importantly than letting Merlin go through, I think is making sure that you have the picks that could potentially deal with him.
I think that it's just, if Space Station are going to reveal that they want Rat Bellona in their first 3 God pick choices, then that should indicate for Trifecta that they have to put a little bit more prioritization, I think, into those solo jungle type picks, because for Andy and Aquarius to get exactly what they want and to do exactly what they want for an entire game, it's definitely not fun for Trifecta now trying to come in from the back foot.
We're getting the game set up just about now, server being prepped and everything. And as we look at Trifecta off of the loss, I think the big deal here is to reflect on why they lost. And I need to see more control in the jungle. When SSG do well, it's largely because Andinster's doing well. And when they do poorly, I think you can look at Andinster doing poorly. And that's not, and you can force, one of the big things about any competitive situation is forcing the opposition to play poorly. Focus on Andinster. Maybe not, the Neil Ma poke you at your speed buff all game, but certainly a little bit more attention to that jungle situation.
I'd actually maybe even like to see Lasbra on a god like Agni, for example, with a little bit more range. That way a Trifecta could possibly have some better contest around objectives or around buffs, because I think the problem with Raijin was off the percussive storm, there was good damage, there was solid damage from Tycho drums, but a lot of the times it was Lasbra just trying to respond defensively to help peel his teammates out, so Tycho drums damage was not typically there. And then when it came to the percussive storm, well, Raijin being one of the closer range of mages, I think he kind of had his own share of difficulties when trying to survive.
A little bit rough there for Trifecta as they bounce back, as they look to bounce back in game number 2. We're going to set up the servers and get everything all ready for you in just a moment. Stay tuned. Game 2 on the way. We'll be right back.